Hello, parents. Again, for the fire, welcome to the fireside chat with Miss Janvi Sunaya. And I'm so happy to be asking her questions, which are formed by my children. Okay, and all the questions, whatever I'm asking, I had sent her all the questions, and she has only chosen the sequence of questions. So here also, the process is very transparent. She's chosen questions from some 5 children. So we go on. The first question is by grade 10 child Akash Panchal. Uh, what can you say about the future of journalism?
Okay. Um, to speak about the future of journalism, all I can say is that whether you are interested in media or whether you are interested in journalism is very secondary. As you are youth and as you are future of India, the first thing that you should learn about the future of journalism and about your future also is fact checking and to identify what is news and what is not news. So I think that's the skill that you should learn because when I see the future of media, all I see is a lot of fact checking that needs to be needed. There are a lot of news which are not news. They're not coming from journalists, but they are just there on your WhatsApp and you consider it news. So I hope as young children you learn what is fact checking and you learn how to identify the correct news and its source. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is by grade 9 child Vihana Bhatt. What skills do you think are most important for young journalists today? So I would like to add in one thing that for parents to understand that somehow in Sinotech we experience, Janvivel, that till 7th standard all of them are okay. For Ayush would definitely agree with me that till 7th standard we have a full class, okay, of 22 capacity, and suddenly in 8th standard there are just 10 of them, and in 9th standard there are 6 of them, which is the case at. So that is the mindset which is like parents that now academics is important. Okay. But it is important right from the beginning, I guess. And somehow journalism also is one of the budding branch, okay, which should actually evolve in today's time. So I think this question is really important that what skills do you think are most important for young journalists today? Or for anybody who is coming out in any field?
First, I'll just give a disclaimer. As she mentioned about academics, is that I have not formally studied journalism at all. In fact, when I went to a journalism school back in my time, I didn't even get admission. But today, I'm teaching in journalism schools. So it's not that if you're not good in academics in the field that you want to pursue in future, only then you can make a future in that line or in that direction. So I didn't study journalism. I did my MBA and my BBA, but eventually, because I was so passionate about media, I ended up going in this field of career, and now it's already been 10 years. Coming back to the second point, which was on skills. Okay, now when I see the young people who want to, who see this field as they are interested in, I see that everyone wants to be before the camera. They want to be before the camera, they want to be news anchors, and they want to speak. But one thing that we miss out on, so if you want to speak, you will have to read. So most of the time, what young people miss out on is reading. Most anchors, most reels that you see on news, even most TV channels who present news, what is their source? For most of those people, the source is newspapers, the print media. Because that's where journalists go in the market, talk to people, and eventually write an article. So the one skill which is very important, even if you are camera shy, not camera shy, these are all secondary things. First is reading newspapers, or reading in any form. You want to read on Kindle, read it. You want to read it on social media, do that. You want to read a book, do that. But primary thing is to read. And here I also recommend a book if any of you are interested in journalism, The Journalist and the Murderer. This is the book, and it touches on all the nuances of our field. So that's a book I recommend. It's a very thin book, 160 pages, but highly recommended to anyone who is interested in this field.
Now, next question is by Anshini Bhatt, grade 8. Can you describe a pivotal moment in your career that solidified your passion for journalism? That moment where you actually felt that, yes, I want to become one. Actually, I always wanted to get into any form of writing. Okay,
used to write poems, I used to write short stories, but didn't know which form of writing I wanted to get into. I was studying in Rajkot. I studied in Rajkot for 5 years, and I was doing my graduation. And just a few buildings next to my college was a media house. I went there without a degree, without knowing anything about media, and I said that I want to write. I didn't know how to write a newspaper article, didn't know the format. But that person, that editor, trusted me, saying that, okay, give it a shot, she's a young girl, why not? They taught me how to write an article. I actually wrote one, it got published, and I got my first paycheck for writing an article. And that's when I felt that, okay, I can do this, and okay, I can also earn money from it. So it was like earning money from the thing you genuinely love. Like you are pursuing your hobby, which is also bringing in money. So that's when I felt that, okay, yeah, I'll do this for the lifetime. Yeah. Without a formal degree.
Okay. Next question is by Pranshi Pathak in grade 5. As a journalist, how do you manage your personal and professional life? The other question also is very similar. As a journalist, how do you manage your time and priorities in your daily routine?
So journalism is not like a desk job. We don't have 9 to 5. We have 24 hours. So today, if there is an accident or today, if there is a major political event happening, I have to leave this event and rush to cover that event. So that's how our life is. We don't just sit before the computers, but we have to talk to real people. Today, I'm talking to a farmer, and tomorrow I will be talking to a politician, and the third day, I'm talking to a film actor. So that's how our lives and works are. So we don't have a fixed timetable, and that's how my life is. That I have to adjust my personal life in whatever time that's left apart from journalism. We always say that media never sleeps, but sometimes I do. So that's all I can say about our schedules. But I would say that this is what I genuinely love about my career. That I cannot predict that what's my timetable for tomorrow or day after. Every day is a new person, a new thing. To just tell you, I have interviewed people who are like 14 years of age just because they did something great in their career. And sometimes I'm sitting with a museumologist, a person who is running a museum, because I have to publish their interview. So it's the diversity of meeting new people, having a cup of coffee with them, and also getting paid for doing it. Yeah, that's the case.
Okay. Next question is, what was the first significant story you reported on, and how did it impact your trajectory? So, one story which you feel that you won't forget in your life reporting.
There are so many stories, but I'll tell you about a story which I'm not sure if how many of you will understand this, the seriousness of it. I was working with Ahmedabad Mirror, and I was how many of you know Tarak Mehta? Okay.
I watched that.
But I'm not talking about Tarak Mehta the serial. I'm talking about Tarak Mehta the person, the writer, and he is from Gujarat. Okay. I was some 22 years old, 23, and Tarak Mehta ji had died, and I was sent as a young girl to go and cover this event. Now, in my life, I had never seen, the body of a dead body, I would say. And I was there. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what to do. The family was grieving. Tarak Mehta was there right before me. I was looking at him for the first time, and I had to go to my office and write something about it. You might have seen so many journalists on television. There's a flood, or there's someone's death, or there's some accident, and they'll go and they'll give you the mic and say, "Aapko kaisa lag raha hai?" I might have been that journalist that day when I was 23. Going to Tarak Mehta ji's wife and asking, ki, "Madam, he is no more, but aapko kaisa lag raha hai?" Because you have to be very sensitive as a journalist, and I didn't know how to handle that situation. I went to that office, wrote a shitty article, and I also got scolded in the office because I was a journalist, but I was not sensitive enough to gauge on what to ask, what not to ask, what to do in that very moment. So yeah, I think that was a very learning curve because that incident taught me on how to cover all the sensitive news that came in my career in my way after that incident.
Okay, now next question is by Krishiv Pujara, grade 6. What differences do you observe while reporting in foreign countries vis-a-vis India? You have, or else, if that is not the case, then you can also talk about your experience with other country. Because I personally know that you represent India in other countries, so do tell us something about it.
The basics of journalism are the same everywhere. Like in law, it is different. If you are a lawyer in India and if you want to be a lawyer in America or UK, the rules might change. But for a journalist, you should have the capacity to go in an unknown room and say that, "Hi, I'm Janvi Suraya," and sit with them with your ears open to listen to their story. So the basic skill set, whether I'm reporting in Russia, whether I'm reporting in Japan, the basic rules are same. What are the differences? I'll just share. One thing is on freedom of press. Like, how much are you allowed to speak against the power? The ratio of this line might change in different countries. And if you want to understand how different it is in other countries, then you can look at the press freedom index and you will see that in which country you can speak a lot of truth, in which countries you can't speak a lot of truth. The other difference is in the safety of journalists. So I joke about it that if you are a good doctor, you might get promoted. If you're a good lawyer, you might get promoted. But if you're a very good journalist, you might be jailed or killed. Now that's the situation of working in some countries. The format remains the same. If I'm doing a podcast here, if I'm doing a video interview here, the format remains the same in other countries. It's all about freedom of press. It's all about the safety of journalists and how much they value their press.
She's sitting last. So next question was very similar by Rhea Parikh, grade 8. That how do you handle ethical dilemmas when reporting sensitive topics?
There are a lot of ethical dilemmas because this job is not like any other corporate job, and I understood it a little late in my career that it is. I'm not working in a bank. I'm working in media where if I write an article struggling with a deadline, it might affect someone's opinion, shape someone's opinion, or inform them about something which is very important for their lives. So yeah, there are a lot of ethical dilemmas, but for all those people who are not familiar with journalism, I'll just give you an idea that most of the time, if a journalist is biased, we might blame the journalist ki, ye government big chuki hai, they are just writing for this party or they are just writing against this party, but I'll explain you the chain. Sometimes there is an intern, sometimes there is a journalist or what we see as a correspondent, then there is an editor, and sometimes the whole media house is funded by a business person, sometimes the whole media house is funded by a politician. So it's a whole ecosystem, and that's why there are a lot of dilemmas in our field more than many other fields. And how I deal with it? Okay, there are a few tips if you want to deal with those ethical dilemmas is to just stick to facts and keep your opinions with yourself. I'll be putting my opinions on social media, but when I'm writing an article for my newspaper or for my digital media company, what I do is that these are the facts. Aisa hua hai. And just stick to the facts, especially as I'm working for a news wire, that is the B2B segment of news, like we supply news to newspapers. So we have to stick to facts and we don't have to do analysis at all. Yeah.
Okay, and what's the most surprising thing you have learned while working at the journal? Anything really surprising which you haven't, you thought that, oh my god, this is so surprising. It's a pleasant one, it can be shocking, it can be,
Yeah. We think that journalism is just one thing, okay? I always thought that there is only one kind of journalism. But like when you choose science, there are so many fields. When you choose commerce, there are so many fields. It was only after coming to journalism I realized that there are so many types of journalism. Let's say you want to write about Kareena Kapoor, you can be a Bollywood reporter, you can get into that kind of journalism. You want to write about books, you can choose that kind of journalism. you are interested in writing about politics, or if you're interested in, say, writing about America or writing about
Right.
Indians in
Crime for that.
crime for that matter, which fascinates a lot of people. So there's so many type of journalists, and that fascinates me a lot because I started as someone who used to write on film industries. I used to write on art, culture, music, lifestyle. Like I used to go to a concert as a job. Like it was my job to go to a concert and eventually interview the artist. And right now I'm writing on politics where I sit with a politician who is also an artist sometimes. And so yeah, I think that was the most fascinating bit of it.
And I think the last segment, the last question, I would really think that do you want to say anything to my children apart from journalism as a human being? And I have seen, maybe I can add one more question. You do a lot of work in women social causes. So I think, and for women empowerment also you speak a lot. So, but for children to, understand it in the simplest possible way, do you have anything to, tell them that this is what they should follow and no stigma for any kind of career what they're choosing or anything what you comes in your mind?
First thing I'll say that, okay, I'm almost 30 years of age, and it feels like, okay, whatever years of experience and all of that, but I always felt it that you need to keep on learning. The school never ends. You never end up going to school in the sense that I still have to upgrade myself, or else today more than ever, there is a fear of just being outdated. And today you can get outdated very easily. You can be the topper in your class today, but I think in 5 years, you might be behind the time. So that's what I'm doing even right now. I'm learning, I'm upskilling, and I really feel that I'm learning from Gen Z or Gen Alpha because this generation has so much to teach us. So one thing I would really suggest is whether it's in your curriculum or not in your curriculum, if you are interested in it, just go and keep learning it because now more than ever there are so many sources to learn and upgrade and upskill yourself.
I have one bonus question. I know she has been an ardent reader and I have attended some of her events also. So when you said that children should read and all, now most of the parents, I know that they will have a question, so what should parents do or what should children do? They are grown-up children already, so that they can inculcate the habit of reading, which is an absolute must in my opinion also. So if you can throw some light, some suggestions to them as in how to invite them in the habit of reading.
As parents, Gandhiji no quote to be the change you wish to see in the world. So I would say that be the change you wish to see in your family. Maybe you can start from taking your children to museums. Ahmedabad itself has around 15 to 20 museums at least. Parents say ketla museums ni khabar chhe, I leave it on them.
Right. Tied up with that also.
Okay.
Now we are starting
to explore.
Yeah. With all of them. Yeah.
Because museums can open doors to history and to dig into history you have to go to books. So that's one thing. Second is that I have spent so many days, if I have weekends, I would just go to Crossword and sit and read. Maybe you can start taking them to Crossword and not to shopping malls. That's another thing because once your children get used to that smell and the visual of books, they might be, they might wish to just pick up one. Other thing is, parents should start reading. I know they're busy and I know they have full-time jobs and I know they have household chores, but if parents start reading, I'm sure kids will surely do that. The other thing is that even if parents start sharing the book's crux to children in a nutshell, I think it will really add value and maybe inspire them to get to a book. So yeah, because in my family, my parents used to read and that's why I started reading books. And I think that's the best way to lead by example. My parents never told me to read a book. I always saw them reading a book and that's why I picked it up. Yeah.
So at Sinotech, we provide both the things, what you told, that visiting the museums and all. So a lot of our field trips are to museums, taking the children and parents. Secondly, we have a very rich library, which they have free access to them. With almost about 1,000+ books. Not a textbook. I mean, just the story books and all. Unfortunately, out of probably 200+ children, what we might be having, probably about 10, 15, 20% would make use of that. So that's a challenge. Now we keep on telling parents that expose children to use this library because it is there for them, and then there are charges also. But so you're right. Thank you for that.
I'll just add to that. Why not experiment with the format? Like, why not give books to students through Spotify? Or why not ask them to read a book on Kindle? Or why not to ask them that you have to read this book and make a reel out of it on what's the book review?
Right.
I think we need to speak to our children in their own language. So if we give them a book as an audio book, they might want to give it a try just because it's cool and it's on Spotify. So I think that reading is important, or getting what's inside the book is important. The format is not important. I don't see that you have to take a physical book. We can try experimenting with the formats and then see if our kids like it.
I would like to add something here. So, in recent interaction with a great pool of parents, what one mom she suggested that we have decided days. So Sunday is a detox day. So Sunday morning, mom picks all the tablets, all the mobiles, everything in her locker, including their dada dadis. Nobody is allowed to use mobile from 8 in the morning till 5 in the evening. Okay? So what they do is they go for gardening together, they go for shopping together, they go for movies together, because usually that doesn't work, The second thing what she suggested is every Thursday night from 8:30 to 10 we have a book reading time. So everybody has to come home, finish your dinner and everything. On Thursdays we allow everyone to select a book for that day. So for example, this Thursday Dada's choice, next Thursday is Dad's choice, next Thursday is your child choice. And maybe you can read just a surface about it, just summary about it, or you really want to read out the pages out of it, or some chapters out of it. Make a habit to read with them, read it aloud, so that you all are involved. And I think that is kind of adding them to the
So
reading.
these were the suggestions to children or parents?
Mostly for parents. Mostly for parents. For sure.
Because all those mobile phones and all, probably those relate to parents more than the children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. So I think we are at the fag end of the whole program, and it was amazing being with you all. Thank you very much for making it today.